Sometimes it feels like Jesus is being a bit hard on his disciples. I once got caught in a flash flood at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. And two things stand out in my memory of that experience. One is how terrifying raging water can be. The other is how maddening it is when the people you're with just don't seem scared enough. This is why I perfectly understand the disciples having feelings about Jesus peacefully napping while their boat is taking on water. After all, it was Jesus' idea to get in this freaking boat to start with. And seriously, how can anyone sleep while they're riding a bucking mechanical bull? They play it all manly and cool for as long as they can, as the winds keep getting stronger. And then suddenly, they all break at once. Jesus wakes up to chaos. 3 men shaking his arms and shoulders, 8 more yelling in his face, thunder crashing overhead, Judas throwing up over the side. Jesus sits up and shouts, "Be quiet!" And it's not just Thomas who stops screaming. Instantly the wind dies, the waves fall flat, the sky's clear. And they all stand in this gently rocking boat, just staring wide-eyed at each other. Then Jesus says into the shocked silence, "Where is your faith?" To me, this might be the most relatable story in Luke. We've all gotten caught in some kind of storm that we didn't see coming. We've all had some moment of being truly convinced that we were going under. It's such a common experience that I read this story and wonder, how exactly did Jesus see this going any differently? What was he hoping that his disciples would do or think in this scenario? Let's play the story back again and imagine ourselves in the boat. We're sailing across a familiar lake. Jesus is asleep. Peter's trying to win a bet that he can't catch a fish with his bare hands. Suddenly the wind shifts, and we look up to see dark clouds gathering. This is the moment that, for most of us, the mental game begins. We start thinking of every story we've ever heard about people dying on lakes. We wonder who would break the news to our mother. We imagine what drowning feels like. We speculate about which bumbling B-listers Jesus might replace us with if he wakes up tomorrow alone inside this boat. What no one is thinking about as the storm rises, what it doesn't seem to occur to anyone to ask until after the storm is over, is who exactly is the guy in this boat with us? And what do we know about him? Nobody here just met Jesus yesterday. They've been following him around for a while. They've seen him heal a man's paralysis, raise a kid from the dead, send some demons back to hell. They've seen the kinds of things Jesus can do. But more than that, they've seen what he's like. He stops to help the servants of enemy soldiers. He gets his heart broken by crying moms. Is someone like that going to let his friends feed the fishes, wake up later and go, "Oops, guess I shouldn't have stayed up so late healing lepers last night"? I really don't think that Jesus is upset that his disciples got scared of the storm and woke him up to ask for help. The problem is, that isn't what they did. What they did was try to sail through alone while working themselves mentally into a full-blown spiral. Then they woke him up just to inform him of exactly how screwed they all are. "Master, we're going to drown." Instead of spending the last few hours future-casting potential disasters, everyone in the boat could have spent some time pondering what they knew about the man sleeping peacefully beside them. If they had, they might be operating from a different starting assumption. Not, "Wow, this boat is really tossing. We're absolutely doomed." But, "Wow, this boat is really tossing. Good thing we brought Jesus along. He's not looking too concerned, so probably this will come out all right." Let's assume that that's the case until he tells us otherwise. How was Jesus hoping that this would go down? Maybe all he really wanted was a wake-up call that didn't start with the presumption of doom. Maybe he hoped his friends would take it for granted that he wouldn't lead them onto a boat without some kind of plan for getting them to shore. Maybe he hoped that his followers would see his lack of hurry and, instead of assuming his indifference, would assume he had a good reason to remain unconcerned. When I picture Jesus lying there napping, sometimes I wonder if he even meant to perform a miracle here. Or if in the end, this miracle was just a concession to his friend's fear. Sudden storms are common on the Sea of Galilee, just as they are in life in general. Our boats get rocked a lot more than most of us would prefer. The question is how we'll respond. We can spend our lives in a state of low-grade panic, convinced every time the winds start rising that this is the storm that will be the end of us. Or we can work from the assumption that God won't sleep through any storm that could really take us under. If we start with that assumption, we might discover that not every storm needs to be calmed. Some storms simply need to be ridden through the tossing until they blow us to the shore we were meant for all along. Let's read the story in Luke 8, verses 22 to 25. One day, Jesus said to his disciples, "Let's cross to the other side of the lake." So they got into a boat and started to cross. As they sailed across, Jesus settled down for a nap. But soon a fierce storm came down on the lake. The boat was filling with water and they were in real danger. The disciples went and woke him up, shouting, "Master, Master, we're going to drown." When Jesus woke up, he rebuked the wind and the raging waves. Suddenly the storm stopped and all was calm. Then he asked them, "Where is your faith?" The disciples were terrified and amazed. "Who is this man?" they asked each other. When he gives a command, even the wind and waves obey him. I'm Megan Larissa Good, and this has been Reading Jesus. If you'd like discussion guides to help you with your conversation or personal reflection, you can go to patreon.com/Jesus Collective Community and look for the Luke 8 discussion guide. Thanks so much for joining me for a few minutes in Luke, and I'll see you next time.